Okay, I'm Kevin Cubo, Development Services Director for the City of Hastings. This is,
I'm Ember Vatsalan, I'm the city planner. And so today we've asked you all to come to, for us to share what we have proposed so far for our zoning code. So I'll let Kevin start off with nope, that went too far, the purpose.
okay, there's multiple reasons why we're rewriting the code. The first one is to align with the comprehensive plan that was adopted in 2025, okay? The major issue with that is our future land use map that's in the composition of the comprehensive plan. So we want to align our districts with that future land use map, okay, and the uses in that map. The second is to eliminate a lot of the spot zoning over the years. Individuals will come into us and go, can we do this here? Well, no, because our zoning says no. Well, then what do? Well, can we rezone it? So now you have R3s in the middle of an R1 neighborhood or a C3 in the middle of a residential neighborhood. We're trying to design a code that's flexible to allow for multiple uses, still protecting that district, but allow multiple uses so we can eliminate that spot zoning issue. And simplify the use tables, because if we don't understand the tables, how do you understand the tables? So we're changing those tables to make them easier to read and understand so there's no gray areas. So that's the main purposes of this. And we're trying to design something that's a reflection of the city, the citizens in the city.
So then to start out with, these are the proposed zoning districts that we have created. Most of this aligns directly with what we had in the comp plan last year. So the A1 would be the agricultural district that remains fairly unchanged from our current agricultural district. Then R0 would be residential estates. That's sort of a combination of the R1A and R1S districts we have. So that's your large lot residential districts, primarily single family homes, low density. Then R1 is sort of redefined as, instead of it being urban single family residential district, it would be low density residential district, to once again tie back to our comp plan that has a low density residential land use category. Then R2 would be medium density residential district, and R3 would be high density residential district. And then the fourth residential district we've created, that's a new district. That would be a residential village district, which is intended to give our mobile homes a place. Currently, all of our mobile homes are in the I2 district. I2 is an industrial district, but obviously a mobile home is an industrial use. So this way they have their own residential district as well as allowing for tiny homes to be developed in the community. Then moving on to the commercial district, the mixed use district, that's just a rename of the campus master plan district. So Mary Lanning is currently that district, and Hastings College. That gives them a district to once again be in, have a master plan in place. Then the C1 local business district, that would be a combination of the current C1 district as well as the CO districts. That once again aligns with our comprehensive plan, which just looked at it as general commercial. Then the downtown business district stays primarily the same. And then our current C3 district was broken into two separate districts in this proposal. So if you can imagine the area around like Walmart and Menards, that's a very different character than if you look at, say, like Russ's Market, closer to downtown. That's a very different character than what you have farther up north along the highway. So with that, we're proposing a commercial corridor district, which would be your more in-town commercial districts, versus the C4, which is your highway commercial district. So that would be like your Walmarts, your Menards, those larger lots, more vehicular-oriented districts. And then the I1 and I2 districts stay primarily the same. Then we also have overlay districts proposed. 5 of those will be staying the same, so that planned district overlay, if someone comes in and they have a development proposed that doesn't quite align with our zoning district, that planned district would give them the opportunity to propose, say, smaller setbacks or other opportunities to then be able to build their development. So that stays the same. Then the flood hazard airport, wellhead protection, and dark sky overlay districts. We currently have that in our code, and those would remain as well. The one new one that we're proposing is that historic preservation overlay district. So if you had a chance to go to our meetings last year about the certified local government, one step in that process is creating a historic preservation board, which would designate historic districts in the community. So this historic preservation overlay district, that would be what they would be designating. So then from there, it's obviously important to know where those things are on the map. So I know you can't quite see this map. I do have a more zoomed in version of that we can take a look at. But basically, we had the computer, we input the future land use of the property, the existing zoning, as well as the existing use of the property, and had the computer spit out what it felt was the best zoning district for that area. Then Kevin and I went through every single property in town and looked at it to determine, does what the computer spit out actually make sense for that property? And so this is the map we came up with from that. And then from there, now that we had an idea of where those districts would be, the next step was to determine what uses should be allowed in those districts. So we started out with our current use tables and what is allowed in each of the districts, and then went through, looked at 6 different communities throughout Nebraska and other states that were a similar size to us to determine what do they allow in similar districts, what do they allow in their communities. And so we determined that one way to simplify this use chart was to have every use alphabetical. So the use categories that are shown on that would be your left, agriculture, animal assembly, that would be the category of the use. So for example, in the chart we have agriculture, rural, and agriculture, urban. So rural agriculture would be one type of agriculture, urban agriculture would be another, but that way they stay in the same part of the table. And so in your packet that it looks like you all have, there's a page on the definitions as well so that you can see what each of these uses mean. Because that way, hopefully with the colors, with it being alphabetical, it'll be a lot easier to use this use table. So those are sort of the 3 different things that we've looked at so far, is the zoning districts, the map, and the uses, because everything else we'll be working on moving forward will build off of that. And we are here to answer any questions or comments you might have, so feel free to ask away.
On the historic district, is that in line with the State Historical Society?
Yes, we're working with the State Historical Society. The Certified Local Government Program is through them to provide us funding to do historic building survey. The last one we had done was in 1999. So if we set up a certified local government, we would then be able to qualify for funding for that. And so creating that historic preservation overlay district would be part of that process.
Okay, and then I noticed, and the records don't go back on the website, there were 2 articles that were for the entrances into Adams County and Hastings. They were repealed in 2009, and I can't get back to 2009 to see what they were and why they were repealed, which is all before. But it was to enhance the entrances on Highway 6 and then South.
Yeah, so there is an Adams-Hastings joint use district that is currently still in place. The county also has that in place, but it is nowhere on our map. Neither the county nor us has actually used that district.
That's that AHPO or whatever it is.
Yeah, so even though that was the intent of that district, since we're not actually using it, we're proposing to just get rid of that district.
Okay, but then it did have some guidelines on it, as I understand it, had some guidelines on landscaping and beautifying the entrances. Mm-hmm. And I guess one of my pet peeves is because I live out to Idlewild, so I shouldn't even be here, but.
Well, no, your opinion
but
and your ideas are just as important as everybody
Yeah,
else.
but you come into town and you go past, there's just south of the landfill, and you got what I used to call Mid-City, I don't know if it still is or not. It's not a good look. And
No,
you got south of Good Samaritan, I don't know what you do with that with the
There is
rides.
discussion now at doing entrance signs to beautify and to let people know that where they're at, City of Hastings. The mayor is actively doing some of that.
And on top of that, the landscaping component, that's not something we're addressing right now, but once we get into that portion of the code, so like landscaping, parking, accessory structures, those are all things that we're still working on. So over the upcoming year, maybe once every 2 months or once a month, we'll bring a section of the code to the people to get their feedback on it. And so landscaping is one that we're still going to be looking at in terms of how much open space would we require on a lot, what would that look like, and that would have an impact on that beautification as well.
Okay, and then this is designed to take chapter 34 out, right?
Yeah, so chapter 34, that would be repealed entirely, and we'd be replacing it with the chapter 54 that we're currently writing.
So my hope is that when Highway 6 project is finished, that will inspire some people to take it upon themselves to re-landscape, maybe beautify that corridor from Burlington Avenue all the way out to Showboat.
Yeah.
Is it gonna happen? I don't know. I wish we had a budget to incentivize that landscaping and make those entrances to the city a little bit more attractive.
Well, it was written into the code to have the landscaping, but now it seems to be gone.
The landscaping code is still there in the development code.
Okay.
In interbuilding. When we do building permit review, we review that to make sure the landscaping code meets the minimum requirements.
Okay.
Your overlay of the historic, whatever you call it now, is that going to interfere with the Nebraska Historic Society? And can you cancel each other out anyway by taking a building out of that, putting a building into it?
So currently there's about, I think, 4 historic districts that are designated at the national level. They're on the Historic Register of Historic Places. And so those properties, they would still be on that register. But designating it locally gives the local government a little bit more control in the process. So it's basically, you have that National Historic Register. That's just a name. There's no regulations attached to it at the federal level. At the state level, they do have tax incentives and other opportunities available if your property is designated at that level. But then if we put something in place locally, that's something we haven't drafted yet, but will also be coming. We can determine how strict we want to be with those regulations. Do we want to require someone to go to the Historic Preservation Board before they demolish a structure, for example? That could be something we write in there. We haven't proposed anything yet, but that is something we could propose at that point in time.
They had some pretty stringent regulations.
Well, and that's
I know
what,
from experience.
once again, we're gonna turn to the people that are in those districts to help write the rules, okay? There are certain things that we need to do to protect your historic assets. We'll start with those, but if the people want more protection or less protection, they need to speak up and let us know what is going on, or what they want in that district.
I did, when I was still in business, I did the Farrell Building downtown. That was a lesson.
It can get really, really sticky.
Yeah, especially when there's funding involved, such as those historic tax credits, then the state does have more say. But generally, if your property's listed at this point in time in Hastings, that doesn't really mean anything.
And then are you going to address, I don't see it on there, but I looked under chapter 32 under nuisances on sound regulation. Is that going to be part of it?
Not at the present, that's more of a police issue. They do a lot of the nuisance enforcement in that chapter. Our next big thing after the zoning, I gotta start working on parking regulations for the whole city. So that's the next hot point we're gonna move to after, if we complete this.
And then subdivision regulations
Yes.
is another one for platting of properties. But that would be once we complete this chapter as well.
In your writing of permitted, I guess, the green, what what are you permitting? I mean, are you permitting a C1 in the middle of a residential area with, say, there's a 4-lot open block?
No, so that would be
How are we qualifying to permit it? What is?
So that would be the map, is whatever the color is on the map, that would determine where your districts are located.
Well,
So
yeah, we
the
don't have a,
This is on your website, so I believe, right?
The map,
This map.
well, the map here, but you didn't give us any idea what.
Oh, we did put a,
oh, did I
You didn't
forget the
put a-
legend?
a
legend
guide
on
on
it.
it,
Oh,
what
sorry.
everything is.
So the lightish pink color, and I know it's a little hard to see on this one, it's not currently on the map, but, on the website, I mean, but we'll definitely add that on so that people are able to see, zoom into the properties. But that would determine where the property is located, as to, so like, if you look at the map, the majority of Lockland would be that yellow color, which would be the R1 low-density residential district. So then back to the green on this map, if you look at like that first one, that agriculture confined animal operation, the only district that has the green is A. So at the top, if you go to the top of that column, that's that A is the agriculture district. So confined animal operations, the only district that would be allowed in is the agriculture district. If you look at, say, animal boarding, it's a permitted use in the agriculture district, conditional in the C3 district, and then permitted in C4, I1, and I2 districts. So that would be if a developer comes in and they want to build the confined animal operation, if their property isn't in an agricultural district, they would not be allowed to build that.
There will be some allowance under plan districts if you go that far, right?
So with planned districts, you generally don't allow more uses, but you could narrow the list down even further. So say your property's in an agriculture district, but you don't want to allow confined animal operations. You could then make it a planned district and say, I'll allow everything on that chart except the confined animal operations. So you can't expand the list, but you could shrink it down even more if you do a planned district. Or with like your setbacks in a residential neighborhood, you have 25-foot front setbacks. In that case, like Trailside's a perfect example of that. They came to us and they did a rezoning to a planned district. So instead of having to put those 25-foot setbacks, they were allowed to do 15-foot setbacks instead.
That was
So-
after the fact.
No, for Trailside, that wasn't after
Okay.
the fact. They came to us beforehand and
Okay.
showed us their proposal of, we want to do this with the 15-foot setbacks, worked through it with them for a couple months, then it went to planning commission, went to council. When that was approved, that's when they started building and have the 15-foot setbacks.
yeah, you're thinking of Fairway.
Yeah.
And that was a glitch in their engineering firm that didn't catch it in time. So the only fix we could have done was just rezone it to RP3.
Yeah, but generally, they come to us beforehand to allow them to build something that wouldn't be allowed generally under our code.
So will that allow people that live on a 50-foot setback to build onto their house in front and take it to a 25?
If they go for a planned district and they ask planning commission and council, hey, I would like a 25-foot setback instead, if council then approves that, then yes, they'd be able to build onto the front of their house as long as it's still 25 foot back from their front lot line. Then they would not have to be 50 foot back. So that planned district just allows you a little more flexibility as to what you're able to do, but it does have to go through planning commission and council first.
Oh, but new construction would not have to do that then?
Well, new construction would also have to go through planning commission and council if they want to change, say, the front setback to 25 feet instead of 50. If they just go with
In
the
that
50,
neighborhood.
yeah, in that neighborhood. So if they just go with the 50, they can just build it. But if they want it closer, then they'd have to do a planned district.
Yeah, you don't see the 50-foot setbacks unless you're like in an R0 or an agricultural.
Yeah.
That's where your houses are set back longer because they've got a 5-acre plot that they can plop the house on. So that's the minimum. That 50 foot is your minimum. You can set it back as far as you want. on those type of lots or those districts.
Right.
These 25 foot is, this is your front setback line. You cannot build past that line.
Well, where we're at, and then I have several empty lots to the north of my house. So they've rezoned that 4 or 5 times trying to get different things in there. And nobody ever wants to buy it to build that, or whatever, to use that residential lot.
Right.
But the houses on our side are 50 foot, so if they come in and be able to go light commercial or whatever and build a storage sheds, do they have to follow the 50 foot then?
It would depend on what the
Yeah.
area looks like. So if every property around you is all in a residential district, then no, they would not be able to rezone to a commercial district, because that would be an example of spot zoning. In that case, they would have to stay in that residential district and would not be able to build a storage
But
unit.
they would be able to go multifamily
Yes.
instead of single.
Yes.
Or,
Well, same with multifamily too, that's a different district. If everything around it is in that R1 low-density residential district, then no, you cannot put a multifamily in the middle of that. It would have to stay in that single
we've got an 8
family.
unit in the middle of the block.
Well, and that's one of the reasons why we're trying to design these codes to be a little bit flexible, but to prevent stuff like that from happening. Just because you want an eightplex in the middle of a single-family neighborhood, the rules say, no. Find another area like an R3 that allows for an eightplex. Because I think R2 only goes up to 6, right? 6 units.
Yeah.
So we are more flexible in the R1s to allow for 1 and 2 family, a duplex, okay? And then the R2, we stretched that a little bit to allow up to a 6 unit building on there to accommodate for what's on 7th Street. What's in front of the college?
Yeah.
Big houses with multiple apartments. So, well, and they just did it because they needed the housing. Well, we're trying to reflect the changes in the needs of the city to reflect what is actually happening. So now that's not an illegal thing anymore. You can do that. If it's an R2 district, you're allowed to do up to 6 units, okay? So we're trying to encourage development in our older neighborhoods, because that's the only thing you're gonna do, because you're not gonna tear down the house. You're gonna reuse that house or reuse that lot. So we're trying to make it easier for that to happen. Now, like you, if you have empty lots, no, we're not gonna let a mini mart go into those lots because that's a commercial use in a residential neighborhood. Okay? We're trying to design codes that protect the neighborhoods, but also be flexible in the uses of that district.
Are you gonna leave the non-conformity part of that in
So there are certain,
on existing? I mean,
yeah, so we'll still have a nonconformity section. We're going to be taking another look at that just to make sure aren't any issues with that. But we will still have a nonconforming section. So anything that doesn't fit in the code, but that's already there, that can stay unless it gets demolished or destroyed by like fire or other natural causes to over 50%. At that point in time, you'd have to build it back to our code. And that's what's currently in our non-conforming section.
Yes. Yeah, it's taking a lot of the 40-foot wide lots and a lot of 45-foot line lots that are non-conforming because they don't fit in the unique district. So we basically say they're legal. We want you to redevelop those on existing 45-foot lots. You just have to design a house that fits that lot.
okay, then I did read in there that if you have 2 adjoining lots and build on across that lot line, they become one lot line or one lot?
No, that would have to be subdivided and combined into one lot. We do not allow building over lot lines.
Okay, well, I thought I read where it became one lot automatically, but.
That was a
There's
building
legal-
covenant, that
Yes.
was a policy we had in place.
Okay.
However, there were issues with that we found out after having done that. So that is not something we're doing anymore. You'd have to replat those lots into one lot
Okay.
before being able to build on
Okay.
it.
That way, it changes it into one lot and then they're recorded at the courthouse and then it
Yeah.
becomes one lot legally.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
It's a little longer process, but it's the right process for that.
Yeah, because that could get kind of tacky if you have that and then all of a sudden storm comes through, you empty it again, and you're back to one lot or two.
Yeah,
So-
yeah.
Now, there is some situations that happened in the past that aren't corrected yet, but we can only do so much. And it's not the original owners that have owned that.
Yeah.
It's 7 owners down the line. So do you punish them for something that happened 20 years ago? No. We just try to work with them and find a better solution.
So you'll get this, well, I got this, I can scan that in, but you'll start putting this on your website, so.
Yeah.
Yes, we'll put it on Engage when we get to a point where.
Yeah,
it's
so the draft
usable.
of the code is already on
Yeah.
Engage Hastings. The map, haven't put it on there quite yet, but I'll put that on there as well. As well as on the city's website. I think there should be a link on there, right, Tony?
Probably on the GIS maybe.
Well, it would be under latest news. Was that on there?
Yeah, there should be, yeah.
Okay.
A link to the draft, yeah,
And
so
and
that should
also,
also be on there.
you're welcome to come to 3505 Yost until May-ish and ask any questions. Because we want, like I said, we need people to ask us questions.
Yeah, I didn't get into it as deep as I want to yet, but I think I'll
No.
have probably some, maybe input
Yeah.
if nothing else, so. You can ignore it like most of my life, but, so.
Yeah, you have a question? Go
I
ahead.
gotta show my ignorance, but when I went online and looked at the meeting today, I thought it said, section 54. And I went to section 54, it appeared that section was all care facilities and.
Yeah, there's
everything.
another draft on the website for that. So.
Yeah, so currently our chapter 54 does not have much in it other than mobile homes and supervised
Okay.
homes.
Yeah, that's
We
what I
did
read.
just adopt an ordinance earlier this month that recodified our entire chapter 34 into 54, so then now in probably next week,
Yeah, Municode should get
it will be on Municode as well.
Yep.
So then our entire zoning chapter will be back on Municode.
Yes.
Well, I did find it on there somewhere, I can't tell you where it
Well,
was.
we have it as a PDF currently,
Okay.
but that's a little less user-friendly. It'll be a lot easier to search things when it's on Municode. So basically, that ordinance we adopted earlier this month was to take it from the PDF format and put it onto Municode. So next week, it should show up on that Municode under Chapter 54, and it will no longer just be those supervised homes.
One slight request to put page numbers on it. That's such a,
Yeah.
well, I downloaded it and crossed it over to word processor so I could do that, but.
And these are just the first draft. As we move forward, we'll put it into code format with section numbers and organize it all into one document. Currently, it's just we are working on the map, the land use tables, and the districts themselves, and that's basically as far as we've gotten, and then we wanted public feedback before moving too far ahead and then finding out we had to restart again. So it will be coming in a more user-friendly format, I hope.
So what will you have for next week's meeting then? The same thing here?
Yeah, it's the same thing for
Okay.
next week's meeting, and it'll probably be either next month or in March. We'll cover the next section, which would be the lot sizes, setbacks, height requirements, those types of regulations. Those will be at the next meeting, which we haven't scheduled yet, but tentatively thinking February or March.
So if we do have any suggestions off of this, just email you? or-
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, if we do get any feedback
You
on
don't
this
have college
section.
empire, do you?
What'd you say?
All righty.
Right now, our phone systems are going through 2 different servers, so we don't know who's calling us. So,
Yeah. But yeah, so if you do have questions or comments on this section, then we'll input that and hopefully we'll get those in place before we get those next drafts out.
Okay.
Any more questions? He's got more questions, you just don't know what quite to ask.
Yeah, I don't, I guess, I tried to get into the website 3 times and it just doesn't go very good.
Just stop up at our office.
Look under latest news, I think that's. where
Yeah,
you'll
I
find
did,
the
and then I only got like 1 page, and I couldn't get any
That's the
farther.
condensed version.
Is it?
But no,
Well, they left some words out.
You didn't ask, you didn't ask AI to
just
do
stop
that.
up at the office and we'll sit down in the office, we can put it on the big
Okay,
screen if you
yeah.
want, and we
Well,
can discuss your
I-
issues.
A lot of it has to do with, I guess, empty lots and what you're allowing to be done
Uh-huh.
now.
And
Well,
I'm gonna pull up that map
I
real
think,
quick too, so we
I
can
think
zoom
it's
in
on
some.
the latest news under the ordinance number, isn't it, 48, whatever it is? I think that's where I found it.
Well, no, because this wouldn't be an ordinance yet at this point.
Well, it's the one you did on January 12th is what I looked at.
Yeah, the one on January 12th was taking our PDF and putting that onto our Unicode. We did make some changes to legal issues we had in our code, so that is still our current code. That is not what we're proposing.
Okay.
You know, I went into the chapter 54 thing and geez, I was in there with churches and for some things.
That's strange. for
That's
you.
because it's not codified yet and put into that. That's what we told you next week. Hopefully Municode will have it uploaded into the website and it'll be codified and then you can have a searchable document.
Yeah, how they could build with no
Yes.
permits and
Well,
all
they would still
that.
need a building permit, they just wouldn't have to go through any
Right.
rezoning process.
Oh, is that the way it's? Okay.
Yeah, but they would still need a building permit, working with fire, building inspectors in order to build it.
Yes.
But it's the zoning aspect that they would not have to look at, so maybe if my map loads, I'll be able to show you those
Go to,
districts.
Chapter 34 and see what we've got now.
Yeah, I didn't go into that one very much. I just tried to get into 54 and there wasn't nothing in there.
Yeah, that's because it isn't codified and it's not uploaded
Right.
to that
Yeah,
website
yeah.
for Municode.
And, yeah, because I see some of the different colored areas right around my house.
Where's your house at?
In South St. Joe, just north of the fire station ways.
Okay.
So you're saying on Unicode when it's like user friendly, we could go to like type in an address and click on it and it'll easily tell us like what it's zoned as?
This is not Municode, this is ArcGIS, which is
That one?
available to the public.
Yeah,
And
so
you
the
can-
land use
Okay, is
GIS
that on
website, yeah, so
Okay.
I'll also show you that. So this one's not on there because this is what is proposed, but if you want to look at what your current zoning code is,
Because that would be just
We
like
have-
if you wanted to look up your voter registration, it would tell you
Yeah.
where to vote, that same information.
so that gis.adamscounty.org, there is under the layers right here, there's a zoning layer you could turn on and off. So that is the current zoning for your property. So if here under search, you type in your address, you'd be able to search your address, turn on that zoning layer, and it would tell you what the zoning is.
And other things, there's multiple layers to it.
So this ArcGIS program, that's where I created the new map for our proposed zoning. So that's not on the website yet, but it will be. So you said a little north of the fire station.
Yeah, St. Joe, you had it there, but I don't know where you went.
So it looks like
Yeah,
fire
St.
station
Joseph.
right here.
Right to the right of your finger there, that's, yeah, go up another block,
Okay.
another block. Or, no, that one. Go to your right, my right there.
That one?
Yeah, there's 3 empty lots there at the end. I live just on the south of those 3 empty lots.
Okay, so we have this one proposed as our R2 district, so that would allow up to 6 units.
There's 8 across the street from
Well, since that one's already built,
I
that
know,
would be an
I know.
example of that
it. That was built
non-conforming.
way back,
Yeah. And like I said, once again, we're trying to fix a lot of problems. We can't fix everything.
I know, I'm just,
But we're trying
well,
to-
I'm curious as to where you're going
Yes.
Yeah.
with all of this.
Yeah.
We're trying to accommodate what's actually happening. You have an eightplex already there. Why can't we make the rules to say an eightplex is allowed? So it's not illegal to build an eightplex.
Yeah.
But
So this is
also, we have to
aligning-
protect that district, whatever that district is, the protections that are afforded by the zoning regulations that we institute in that district.
So this is aligning with our comprehensive plan. Our comprehensive plan shows this area as medium density residential, and I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but I think it was around 15 dwelling units per acre is what they suggested in the comp plan. So all of this zoning that we're proposing up to the 6 units, that would get you slightly under that 15 dwelling units per acre. So the last page of your packet, that is a density chart in there. All the numbers on the left would be your sizes of your lots. And then within the chart itself, that would tell you the number of dwelling units per acre. So the color coding sort of goes with what residential district it would be in on that chart. So like the light green, that would be your R0, your residential estates. The yellow would be your R1 low density residential, the sort of light orangey
Yeah, I
color.
understand, 4 units to 10 unit, whatever,
Yeah,
yeah, or more, apparently,
What's that?
or more.
Or more.
yeah, so in like that R3 district, it could go over 10 units, but that would obviously make the number of dwelling units per acre a lot larger. So that's why that's in that darker orange color, because that would only be allowed in that R3 district.
And when we were creating all of this, we used those basic rules to see if that district actually followed that, or if it needs to change, or whatever. Those are our basic guidelines of creating districts. Okay?
If districts are like that going to be changed by a lot of this, are you gonna notify the people?
Well, that's what the
So-
public meetings, once we get a final draft done and it's adopted, we will do more public meetings and website, and we'll do
Yeah,
everything we
so
can.
generally, when we have that rezoning, the 3 people that are 300 foot around the property get sent a letter. In the case of the entire municipality being changed, such as this, we don't send out those letters, but we still do have the public hearings at Planning Commission and Council, and then the public meetings we're doing tonight.
For that area, yeah.
Yeah, since we're making changes to the entire city.
And we can split it up into wards too. It's, like I said, we're open to any suggestions. We just want people to know why we're doing it and how we're doing it, and letting know that we are doing it.
Well, remember that great big war.
So, you know,
Yeah.
we can meet at the fire station, we can meet anywhere.
Yeah,
We just need people
no, I
to.
appreciate, that's what I
Yeah.
hope, you know, that
Yeah.
we get some transparency on what you're gonna do to certain areas.
That's part of this equation. It's not all of the equation, but it's part of the equation. And that's why I stressed this morning on the radio. Didn't we, Tony? We need your input. We want your input. This is your code. That's not our code. It's your
Well,
code.
yes, I realize.
And this is just the first of many public meetings. Like I said, we'll likely have the next one in February, March to talk about those lot sizes and setbacks. At some point, maybe around April, May, we'll talk about accessory uses, parking, landscaping. Those are all topics that'll still be coming up in the upcoming year. So then once we've had all those public meetings, gathered the feedback on all that, have a draft, then we'll go to Planning Commission and Council for adoption.
Once this is passed and codified, the Board of Adjustments will still be having a say.
So the Board of Adjustment will still be in place, so if you get denied for, say, a rezoning request, you could then appeal to the Board of Adjustment. They would still hear your appeal. For the Board of Adjustment, though, in state statute, there are 4 characteristics that they decide their vote on. So that is primarily if there's a hardship. If there is not a hardship, they would likely deny your appeal for the Board of Adjustment. But you still have the opportunity to go there.
I'm gonna throw one at you. Okay, what if you had somebody come in and wanted to do a bottle club or a nightclub? You know, what zoning would it come in under?
At
Well,
Ninth and Burlington?
We have already put that into the schedule, and I'll never discuss that, because she did a lot of how she split that out. It's a very unique way of doing this, so.
So we had, well, there's 2 of them in here. There's assembly adult establishment, that would be like your dancing, strip clubs, that type of business. And then we also have community retail adult establishment. So that would be your liquor sales, your tattoo parlors, your anything that has an age limit basically to get in. So currently we have that liquor stores proposed to be permitted in the C1, C2, C3, and C4 districts as a permitted use. So if you want to put in a tattoo parlor, a liquor store, those types of businesses, that would be allowed in those 4 districts.
I know we've had issues in the past. So-
And that's why you don't see anything in the code now. They just said, oh, well, let's take everything out. And hopefully it'll all go away. No, it doesn't go away. You have to address,
Yeah, if it's
Individual
not,
needs in
if
the
it's
code.
not in the code at all, that means you can put it anywhere.
so,
So if you don't have an adult establishment and they come in and they ask, hey, where can I put it? Well, since we don't have it in the code, we can't tell them you can't put it there. We have to allow it everywhere. So that's one of the changes we're proposing, is that liquor stores, bars, those types of places, that there's only certain districts that you're able to put that in.
and we haven't got to the nuts and bolts of each one of those districts yet, but we'll have guidelines that help protect. You can't be 1,000 feet from a school or a daycare, or we'll write those in to meet state statutes, number 1. 2, we'll look around to see what other communities are doing, and then public input. What do you want? Do you want a liquor store next to your church?
That would be handy.
Just a wine shop.
But that, these rules are protection rules. Those protect other districts and that district. So people look at them as, well, you're telling me what I can do with my property. Yes and no. These rules are protecting everybody. You just don't like the rules that are in place. And we're trying to make rules that everybody can understand. And he's shaking his head a lot, so I must be saying something right.
Now, like in a clear zone area, like out by the airport, and I know it curtailed development. I mean, the mall was just built in the wrong place with all the landlocked around it.
Kind of, yes.
And as things go on, is I guess clear zone space mandatory by the Federal Aviation Commission?
Yes, and that is supported in the airport overlay, okay? Those restrictions are more FAA than it is us.
Yeah, and that'll show you your height requirements and stuff.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, have a good evening.
Yeah.
So like I said, let's all fill you in. For example, the Kmart building, all that development for Perry Reed. Those apartments that went up, they're just on the edge of a zone. So when they had a finished height on them, they had to contact the FAA and register that finished height. And they have to put little red lights on top of them to notify aircraft that there is a high structure there. But if it got any closer to that zone, then the height limit's 25 feet. So our street lights, everything is designed to that 25-foot limit, okay? That's what your overlays are gonna do, is protect certain things in that airport overlay.
Now, like, I'm just talking as I think.
That's dangerous.
I know it could be that's why my shoes have holes in them. I've shot myself in the foot many
You put your
times.
map back up there with the key on the side.
If you guys are looking at development, we're I think our planning determines maybe what the future plan of an area it is for development. What about roads? What about highways? I mean, do you work with the state, to see if there's funding? I look back over the years, and I've watched Second Street get widened. I've watched Burlington get widened. And I know that probably came through the city engineer back then.
Yes, and most of that still comes through our engineering department. We have a multi-layer issue there. Depending on what street it is and where it's at, Some state funding allows you to do residential streets or arterial streets, not very much of it, because it all goes to highways.
Yeah.
But that's where your developer, when he develops an area, it's his responsibility to put in the streets as part of that development, okay? If he, like Alan Anderson out at Westbrook, okay? He did all the streets. Now, technically, it should all be done to our standards. We have a minimum standards for streets, 47B concrete, a width requirement based on how much traffic is on that street. There's a whole lot of stuff that gets reviewed too for that developer to come in. Elman 26, part of that development, where those apartments are private streets. So we still made them follow our design guidelines, but they're gonna take care of those streets. Now, once you get to the single family area, Elm Meadows, I think is the, yeah, that becomes a public street. So those streets are designed to our guidelines again, but we're gonna maintain those streets. So we can work with the developer. It's just, does the city have a budget to build all the streets in the world without any? See? So we have to be very careful how we develop, because it would break a city if we just build, and not have anything out there. So we work with the developer, we try to get what we need for the public and in the future, because once we adopt the street, you own the street now. So we want that to last 50 years. So it doesn't cost you another $100,000 to come back in and redo it again. So there's a multi-layer issue when a developer comes in. He talks with engineering a lot, he talks to planning and zoning a lot. Once all that is worked out, who pays for water, sewer, electric, streets, all that gets computed in there, and then the building permit process starts. We
Now-
try to be as thorough as we can.
Yeah. Well, I know like in some states, the developer, say for example, on 26th Street, when you build an apartment complex to that magnitude, you have traffic, a little more traffic. And they would be required to put in a turning lane off of the
So at
street.
Elman 26, they actually did a traffic study which determined that at this point in time, it wasn't necessary to put in a turn lane, traffic light, or any of those things. So that's something that the engineering department will keep an eye on, and if traffic does increase to the point that those things will be necessary, then that's something that would be put in. But they did do a traffic study as part of that development.
And the 12th Street corridor, I know that's still on the 1 and 6 year road plan. We've done multiple traffic studies to account for the traffic that's on 12th Street. How do we handle it? That's what the roundabouts are coming in. How do we pay for that's the problem. Because if the state doesn't help us, it's not gonna get done. But we make developers do traffic studies. If we think that's gonna be an impact in a district or a road, we ask them to do a traffic study to provide that to us. And if it doesn't fit our needs, then we ask them to do something different or accommodate that traffic. So we're getting much better at that.
So how often will they do that at 26 and Elm for a traffic study? Because once that gets full, that's gonna be a different animal.
Well, but we calculated the traffic. When they did the studies, they calculated all the apartments being full, okay? And does everybody have a car? So they take into all those values and plug it in and go, can Elm and 26 handle that traffic? And they figured that it could because of the access off of 26 and the access off of Elm. Those roads are built for heavy traffic. Those are collector streets. Both of them are collector streets, so they're built to better standards. Now, if the volume like at Burlington at 8 o'clock and noon and 5:30, do we need to get something with that traffic? What do we do with that traffic? So that's where the traffic studies will come in and say, well, part of them divert at 12th Street. They go east or west, or part of them go on 42nd Street.
I remember 12th Street past Baltimore was a gravel road.
Yes, so as times change, we're getting better at reflecting those changes. It's just the money factor that the city, every day we have to worry about that.
So like, and would be in the street fund, that has to be put in for, and then you get, I don't know, gas mile tax or however?
We get funding through the gas mile tax for projects that are existing streets. For new streets that the developer's doing, that's all paid for by, let's say, TIF. That is what your TIF financing helps that developer pay for the streets, the water and the sewer, and it gets spread over 15 years by a bond. Your taxes don't go up. They just take the difference in the taxes, what it's worth now and what the value is when you get everything built. They take those differences and they apply it to the payment of a bond that helps you pay for that infrastructure. Because there's very few developers that can have $15 million in their pocket to pay for a street. So you see a lot of negativity towards TIF, but a lot of the projects around Hastings wouldn't happen if there isn't TIF involved.
Yeah.
And it's not a freebie, it's not a handout. The only money that exchanges hands is the increase in taxes help pay for that development and only certain things in that development. It doesn't pay for the buildings. It pays for site prep, your infrastructure, and that's about it.
So in the past year, a couple of examples that use TIF is that Trailside development, up north, that one used TIF, Elm 26 used TIF, Cedar Park over on D and Cedar Streets, that used TIF. Those are just a couple of examples of projects in the past year. They've all used TIF
And
either on
the theater
streets or
district.
infrastructure.
Theater district relied heavily on TIF.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've really never talked with Randy Chick as far as, I know things have changed from when TIF first started.
Yes.
You know, they allow more in land costs or land development, architectural fees. A lot of that wasn't allowed when it first
It
started.
was very strict when it first
It
came out.
strictly went to public improvement. So, you know, the other part is it doesn't pay anything to schools that I know of, you know, in a project like that.
Not in the first 15 years, because
Yeah.
all that money, the TIF money,
Yeah.
pays off the infrastructure costs. Now, if that project doesn't happen, the schools aren't gonna receive any more money anyway, because there's nothing happening on that lot. But now, at 15 years, or earlier, they can pay off the bond earlier, then the money gets divided between the county, the city, and the schools, and the historic districts, and whoever, the CRA gets a portion of that too. Is that a detriment? I don't know, because if you don't build, they're not gonna be here to use the service.
Make adjustments here in insurance and stuff, and maybe I'll last another 15 years. So
Oh,
I can
easily.
see some of that paid off.
But like I said, Nebraska is very stingy on how they allow economic development. That is one of the tools that
Yeah.
Nebraska allows. That's not our fault. That's our legislators. So if the only tool we have, yes, and I don't want to defend TIF, but if that's if God only gave us one tool and it's a hammer, we're going to use the hammer. So if there's another tool out there, let's see it. You know, if you give somebody $100 million to build something and they have no accountability, what is that? So TIF is an accountable thing. People don't like it because they don't understand it.
And that's one thing too, that it's a little off subject, but TIF is in danger if
Yes, it is.
if Epic passes, so.
Yes. But then you'll see development in all your first-class cities, you'll see development go down. Because they rely on that to help fill that gap. Any more questions?
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for taking time to.
We'll have plenty more when we get more information.
Okay, like I said, this is just the beginning of the process, and like I said, I want people to realize that they can come to us and ask us questions. We're not here to punish, we're not here, all we're here is to help people get what they need, okay? Sometimes you don't like what we tell you, but we're here to work with you. And my door's always open if I'm in the office, and so is Ember's, so. And I know you're not used to that.
Let's go to work on it.
But yeah, like I said, you guys look over it, fine tooth comb. You see something that doesn't work or you're uncomfortable with, call us, ask us, set up a meeting. We're happy to talk. Please. Huh, Tony? How many times have I said that?
Well,
the meeting next week is